folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania with a special broadcast and a special guest we haven't seen on the program since last year. He's been busy, as have we, with all the nonsense going on around the world, especially here in the U.S. We're going to path to South Africa. None other than the guy who's in demand right now. Everybody wants to talk to him. Roman got the first bite of the apple here, so I'm feeling like yesterday's cheese. But let's welcome Ian Cameron. Ian, how's it going? Oh, got you on mute there.
There we go. Hi, Chris. Thank you very much. It's awesome to be with you again. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, let's get right to it. Okay, so for those who don't know, and I think that would be people in Alpha Centauri, and I don't know, maybe people in the Democratic Party here in America. But beyond that, pretty much I think everybody else knows that recently at Gugulethu, you went to a public meeting with the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, and you asked him what I saw. Now, I'm going to ask for your side, but I only have the video evidence I saw. You asked reasonable questions and made reasonable points, and he went batshit crazy. And so I think he had really, I don't recall what his first language is, but let me help him out because apparently, according to Talon Bezuidenhout, in Isikosa, you can say, Tula, valo umumo. You know, you just tell people that, shut up! Anyway, so Ian, what exactly was going on there? What was the meeting about? And what were you asking of the minister to get him so upset?
Yeah, Chris. No, so let me give context. I think obviously his reaction was very disappointing. I don't think that's the way someone in his position should ever behave themselves. But we'll get to that now. So basically, what happened was it was a public meeting. It was a ministerial community engagement session regarding crime. It was a police minister session. Why I attended, the reason is simple. I do work for an organization called Action Society, and we are mandated by several families of people that have been murdered in that area due to gender-based violence, whether they are children or older victims, nevertheless. And that's why we decided to attend. And I wasn't actually planning to speak. I just attended to go and listen to what the minister had to say. But I must highlight, what really disappointed me is that in a space like that, where they literally have almost a 50% shortage of resources in terms of manpower at the police station and what they're meant to have, he has the audacity to show up there with a 6-vehicle motorcade and a whole lot of bodyguards, etc. In fact, they even had a public order policing armored vehicle standing outside. And what happened then is he walked in and he immediately started politicking. He was, when he started his introduction speech, he immediately made derogatory comments, not only to provincial and local government, but also to neighborhood watchers that patrol the streets. And he insinuated that he and the South African Police Service are the only constitutionally mandated bodies that are allowed to patrol and safeguard people. And still, I obviously kept quiet, and I then waited, and there were 12 people that spoke before me. I was the 13th speaker. I was the third speaker of the second round. And before I decided to actually speak in the second round, I started listening to some of the complaints of the community. And obviously, I'd heard some of them from the victims' families that we are already representing as an organization. But what got to me was that many of them had said, but Minister, you promised many of these things 3 years ago already. It's getting worse. You say this and that about the station and that capacity is going to improve, etc., but it still has the same issue. And I then decided, but let me just speak about the resource shortage first. And that's when I became the 13th speaker. Nevertheless, I then got up, started speaking, and I mentioned a few things. And then as I was speaking, I looked around me and I realized that the people were really supporting what I was saying. And I realized, but wait a minute, why am I being so, sensitive, or, why am I pussyfooting around it being a minister? this man is a public servant. He is meant to serve the people. And here is a community that can hardly put food on the table. And they are, some of them are actually scared of speaking to him directly. And I just decided up to here and no further, I'm gonna take him on. And immediately the thought that came to my mind was a case that we're working on in Khayelitsha, which is next door basically to Gugulethu. And I mentioned that, but then I decided that I'm definitely going to take him on about the fact that he not only misinterprets, but quotes the Constitution wrongly and creates the impression that he has the monopoly on community safety. And then I told him that, Minister, you are failing your own constitutional mandate. You are not safeguarding people. And I want to invite you to come and patrol the streets with a brave woman that not only patrol there unarmed, untrained, they literally walk through streams of sewage some nights trying to safeguard their communities. And that's sometimes even during load shedding. So there's no electricity. It's one of the most dangerous places in the world, never mind South Africa. And he has the audacity to then make it a political discussion. And I just said to him, it's not about politics. The fact of the matter is 67 people get murdered every single day in South Africa, and he has time for ridiculous political disputes. It is time that we bring him and take him to task.
Well, everything that the ANC touches is political. I mean, obviously, that's the bottom line here. This guy loves to play the victim here. He acts like he spent 38 years in Robben Island. He was with MK briefly and was in prison for 87 until he was released in 90. And he wants to walk around with liberation credentials. But he's already been sacked for corruption as a police minister previously and then brought back as a retread. His behavior is beyond abysmal. It's atrocious to say the least. And this is why. Now, you can correct me on the record if I've gotten this wrong, but I understand that Action Society is in the community all the time, frequently. You're there. You guys know what's going on the ground. And you don't have to answer this, but look at the comments, and the same thing from Talon Bezuidenhout, which we saw this week. The Legal Practice Council said that, oh, well, what he said wasn't an insult in Isikosa in his small village. Well, in my small village, where I'm from in rural Appalachia, we call people dumbasses. So I guess I'll just be calling Talon Bezuidenhout dumbass the next time I'm in court, because apparently that's appropriate language in a court of law. And with the minister, his behavior, I mean, it's beyond race hustling, which is what the ANC does. It was racist, and it was insulting and condescending, to say the least. Again, I didn't see the whole thing. I'm just getting my reaction to what we saw. What I found interesting is it took at least 8 police officers to escort you from the building. And you had one who was very rude and disrespectful, sticking his finger in your face and threatening you and chasing you away. You didn't appear to resist. Again, I can't see the whole video. Did you not resist? Did you resist? Is there a reason why it took 8 police to escort you from the building? Or what's 8? I mean, that seemed like a lot to me.
Well, to this day, I don't know who gave the instruction to remove me, and I still am not sure why they removed me. The minister went off on a rant, and let me give context on that as well. So after I had spoken, there were another about 6 or 7 speakers after me, and I obviously kept quiet and listened to them. And then he made the closing remarks for the day. He was joking and making, just general banter. And then the next moment he pointed at me and he took me on in front of the crowd. But it was almost an attempt. I don't know if he wanted to humiliate me, because I think he ended up humiliating himself. He certainly didn't humiliate me. But then he insinuated that I think of him as a garden boy. And in context, again, he insinuated that I'm a racist, and I will not stand for that. I don't care if he's the president of whatever. I just decided that I'm not going to stand for that. And then I stood up and I said, Minister, you need to retract your statement. And that's when he lost it. He couldn't stand the fact that I said to him, retract your statement. And then he said, sit down, young man, shut up, blah, and he went off. And I just said to him, I will not sit down. I will stand my ground. You will not insinuate something about me that's not true. The point is, again, and I'm repeating what I said earlier, 67 people get murdered every day. When I quote that, I don't quote which race each of those people are. It's a tragedy in its own. I couldn't care less what color you are. It's a tragedy that people get slaughtered the way they do in South Africa. And the next moment, cops surrounded me. and pushed me from the building. Interesting tactical response team members with assault rifles came running in. I thought to myself, geez, I'm sitting at the back of a hall. Imagine if they put in the same effort just to combat crime within a kilometers radius around that hall where it happened. And when we came outside, they started walking very fast. I see on the one video that the one cop tried to reach for his cuffs. And they started walking faster. They were pushing me. The one basically tore my jacket zip open. And I just said to them, why are you doing this to me? I don't understand why you're acting this way. And the one cop said to me, shut up, white boy. And then I just said, well, I'll go. And then a senior police member came out and he said, guys, let him go. And then they took me to my vehicle, after which I told them I just want my notebook and then I'll vacate. But anyway, the media, there was so much media there. So we stood outside on the sidewalk and spoke first and then, moved on.
Well, I'll answer the question. You don't have to. I can tell you exactly what's going on here. It's a fragile ego from a failure who can't stand legitimate questions. It wasn't even criticism. I mean, what I heard of your comments were simply, listen, this isn't working. You've said it before. How are you going to fix this? I mean, that's my words, not yours. But I think that's the gist of pretty much what you're asking there. And his fragile ego can't take being challenged because he has a big man complex, as does Cyril Ramaphosa, Ace Magashule, Zandile Gumeda, all of these crooks, cheats, liars, and thieves. Hey, by the way, I have a program, Ian, I started since you were on last year, a segment called Answer the Question with Rob Hutchison every week. And so we pose questions, we're called the Wise Bros. People can ask questions. So I'm going to do that to you right now, Ian. Answer the question. Do you keep large packets of U.S. dollars wrapped in plastic hidden in the furniture of your house?
I wish. I wish I had that kind of money.
I'm just asking. No, but seriously, it's the micro penis syndrome. I think that Garden Boy Becky's got some serious issues there. But no, it's really sad to see this. But just run through the numbers here very quickly. I've got them because I did a meme with Becky last night. I put it on my channel. Had a little fun with it. Now I used Modern Talking's "You're My Heart, You're My Soul" as a tribute to Bheki Cele. That's not on YouTube because that'll get a copyright strike. But it's on other platforms. And I did send it around in WhatsApp and Telegram groups to people. But from January to March of this year, 6,083 murders in South Africa. That works out to over 24,000 per year. 60 million people. The United States has 350 million people, and even in a year when our murders spiked, our summer of love with leftists terrorizing our cities in 2020, we only went from 13 to 16,000 murders. So you're outdoing the United States with a population 1/6 of our size. You have more murders. Sexual offenses, which are widely underreported, 13,799 in 3 months. Attempted murder, 5,700. Assault and common assault, over 91,000 assaults reported to the police. Common robbery, 10,700. You know that's widely underreported because people ain't bothering. Insurance isn't going to pay them anymore. 157,907 contact crimes. And lest we forget, Bheki Cele was absent without leave last year during the armed insurrection for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces when hundreds of billions of rand of lost business opportunity, businesses, lives, 354 fatalities, all while he was, who knows where he was at. Oh, that's right. He was on a beach chasing away foreign tourists who were wearing bikinis, for not adhering to the lockdown regulations. Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy here. Now, in your role, you actually work with safety for the community, yes?
Absolutely. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit how that works?
Yeah. So what we basically do in my role at Action Society, apart from the national campaigns and everything regarding gender-based violence, we built a model or developed a model that basically assists with the oversight of prosecution. Firstly, but it also assists with the investigation, or even we even do the investigation when such an incident should happen. So the example that I used actually to Bheki Cele on Tuesday was the one of Nosipiwe James, that she was murdered in the beginning of May in Khayelitsha. She was stabbed to death barely 100 meters from where 6 other people were shot dead about 5 minutes before, 100 meters from there. Yeah. And we then managed to locate the suspect in the Eastern Cape. We had him brought back to the Western Cape, arrested, etc. And he's still in detention. Obviously, he's appeared in court and so on and so forth. So what we basically do, to summarize it for you, Chris, is we oversee the investigation. We assist with the investigation. We then do oversight on the prosecution. And once that's done, we obviously try and keep that suspect behind bars for as long as we possibly can.
Now, in 1994, Ian, and don't dare tell me how old you were in 1994 if you weren't alive either, so I don't want to hear that. But in 1994...
4 years old.
Oh, stop. In 1994, I was a captain, and people asked me about South Africa, and I put forward my thesis about how South Africa can emerge from where it's at. It has a great, it's getting a lot of resources, a lot of human capital. Everything's, the cards are aligned, the stars are aligned. South Africa can go places, but it needs to do certain things. And among those, I talked about community policing. I said that the police have to be converted from a force that protected the minority, that was primarily their mission, and oppressed the majority by and large. That's not the entire picture, but generally speaking, that was the case. It's got to be converted from that into a modern police force that does community policing, where police are on the street walking a beat or on horseback like they do in Durban, where they're interacting with the community so that people know who they are, they trust them. When someone misbehaves, they'll tell the police about it. So you have these contacts in the neighborhood, and you have to put money, training, and resources into equipping and preparing this police force to behave itself properly. And that's what needs to happen. That's never happened. The police force has gone up in size, gone down. They went up for the FIFA World Cup. They went back down. They're under-resourced. They're underpaid. They're full of corrupt people. There are honest cops there, but they find themselves in trouble. And here's the biggest problem. This is not a statement, but a question I'm turning into. Are you frustrated by the fact that SAP's forensic capabilities is probably less than what I have here in my house? They're atrocious. Are you frustrated by the fact that the Department of Injustice doesn't prosecute cases? It takes forever. Are you frustrated by the DNA evidence backlog of 300,000, 400,000 cases that aren't being pursued because they don't have the resources? So do you help fill that gap? It sounds like you might help the law enforcement with that issue.
Yeah, so we're obviously we led I see us as one of the leading parties in the whole fight regarding the DNA backlog, and I think it's crucial that really be let's say spearheaded as far as it possibly can, because remember, without that, it basically means that people are denied justice in South Africa. It's as simple as that. And so we let that, Chris, the frustration is a very serious thing. We really are frustrated. And the reason for that is quite simple. And it starts as follows. For sexual offenses in South Africa, there is a less than 5% successful conviction rate in South Africa. And remember, those are only the cases that actually go to court. Then you still have many cases that never make it there. Now, if we take something like rape, you've got between 120 and 150 rapes per day in the country. Remember, only 1 in 9 are actually reported. So
1 in 9, 1 in 10 are actually reported. Yeah, so we're talking about hundreds of thousands of rapes.
Exactly, and that simply means that we have a very, very, very serious crime issue that's not being fixed.
Well, we have a similar problem here in the States, Ian, and it's begat by a whole host of things, including a bunch of progressive district attorneys like Larry. Whoops, I think I've lost Ian. Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, who was elected and has been releasing known murderers, convicted murderers who've been rearrested for felony violations of having firearm possession, and then put back out in the street almost the same day by the Philadelphia district attorney. It looks like Ian dropped off. We'll hopefully get him back here. So stay tight there, folks. Let me just address some of the folks in the chat really quick here. I see some new names or names I haven't seen in a while. Katie Marie, welcome to you. You wonder what the numbers are for black and white crimes and vice versa. Here he is. He's coming back. Okay. Yeah. So welcome to you, Katie Marie. Also saw Bruce Thackwell. Welcome to you. A new MP in South Africa, the non-racial youth. The cavalry's coming. Well, hopefully the cavalry's coming. Oh, yeah, Deborah, the number of rapes that are actually reported are abysmally low. I mean, you understand, anyone that's ever been a victim of such a horrific crime, it's incredibly painful to deal with. It's also very embarrassing. It's traumatic. And then going and reporting to somebody takes a lot of courage, especially in a system like in South Africa where, as Ian said, less than 5% of people are actually convicted of the crime. So here's the problem, Ian. I see you got back there. Can you hear me again, Ian? Ian, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, I think we've been load shedded.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. That's been a problem with my audience, just getting the numbers normal. It's also been a problem with people participating in things. So here's the thing. You mentioned the less than 5%, but here's the real challenge for all these crimes. Virtually no crimes are investigated. Very few people who commit crimes are ever actually arrested, and even fewer are charged, even fewer are incarcerated, and almost none are even tried. And then from those that are tried, so few are actually ever convicted. And that's the scary thing about this. Crime is beyond the pale in South Africa. And every time I hear, when I worked at the Pentagon and worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency, I was reporting on crime in South Africa. And one year I couldn't report because the ANC just decided not to release the crime figures, which is against the law, by the way, but they got away with it for nearly a year because it was so horrific. It was embarrassing to them. Eventually, a court case, they were forced to go out and release this stuff. But I mean, when the government hides crime data for a government that claims to be so transparent, things have got to be horrific.
No, absolutely. I think this altercation with Bheki Cele says a lot more than what it might look like on the surface. It actually speaks a whole lot more for the actual dire situation that the country's facing in terms of crime and violence. I think the way that he treated me is the way that he sees, or let's rather say, is the derogatory way in which he actually sees the majority of people around him. He looks down on them. He does not want them to be safe because he doesn't act in that way. He doesn't prioritize crime in a way that really sees people being safeguarded throughout South Africa. I honestly think we've got a serious issue when it comes to political interference in law enforcement in South Africa. And I honestly think that it will get worse. I don't think, and this isn't to be pessimistic, this is why we need to develop the models like Action Society is doing at the moment. There's always hope, but I think we need to understand that if we're purely going to wait on government for change, or if someone like Bheki Cele and his cronies stay in power, we cannot expect any real change to happen. I mean, to give you an idea, Chris, since everything happened on Tuesday, the amount of messages and calls that I've received from police members saying that they support me is incredible. And these are police members that work in townships, cities, rich areas, poor areas. They all say that they feel humiliated by Bheki Cele, not only because of his behavior on Tuesday, but his behavior in general. And I must say, getting those calls just confirms that speaking up against someone that's, that really promotes tyranny the way that he does, it was the right thing to do.
No, absolutely. And that's why I made that point a few moments ago about, the system, not about individual police officer, because there are cops that try their best and you can't overcome certain things. I mean, you can be a great cop. You can hunt down the criminals. You can arrest them. You can take them and turn them over to authorities. And if they're never prosecuted and convicted, they're back out on the street. That's really not something you can contain. It's pretty crazy. Now, you mentioned political interference, and I don't want to say I want to correct you, but I want to add to that. I would say that political interference is the norm in all aspects of civil society in South Africa, whether it's taking the tourism relief fund and reserving it only for people of sufficient pigmentation, which is against the Constitution. It's also racist, but they got away with it. Or it's BEE, or it's the state-run enterprises that destroy life and wealth and livelihoods and keep South Africans impoverished, like failing Eskom, South African Airways, the Airports Company South Africa, Transnet, the list goes on and on, Denel. It's every aspect of life in South Africa the government has intruded into, and there's political interference everywhere. From the whole concept of deploying, and I'll use the South African vernacular, cadres, well, the word is cadre, but cadres, deploying their cadres all over the place. I mean, that's where the rot really started. And when that started, I pointed that out. Of course, I was behind the wire in a classified environment, but I pointed out to people, I said, this will be the death knell of the modern South Africa. This deployment of cadres, this is ridiculous. Sending political hacks who are loyal to Luthuli House and not to the people they're supposed to be representing or serving is only going to lead to corruption, more patronage, and disaster and service failure. And that's exactly what it was. But, really quick, get back to a point here. So someone in the chat asked a question. I'm going to give my statement, and I think we probably agree, and then I'll just give you a chance to get in there. The question was, with those stats that I report on there, which come from the South African government, South African statistics from the police, what are the crimes black on white? And my answer to that is that it really isn't germane. I don't think that's a statistic we can get to, and it really doesn't matter, because the concern I have, and I suspect you have, is not about black and white crime, but crime in South Africa for all South Africans. And the bottom line is, you don't even have to be a rocket scientist. The majority of crimes are committed by black South Africans. They're 80% of the population, and they commit 80% of the crimes. But that's not really the issue here. The issue here is the lawlessness that's tolerated by the judicial system and by the government, and that's what really needs to be addressed. And also, callous disregard for life in South Africa, which is something society has to fix. Anyway, that question, I don't think it's germane. Do you think it's germane? I think the real issue here is just crime in general.
No, to add to what you said, remember that the majority of crime in South Africa committed is black on black crime.
Exactly. Blacks are the victim. Black South Africans are the victims overwhelmingly, including the murders. Almost all people who murdered are black. Yeah. And if you go and work in areas that are very poor and predominantly black, you'd be astounded at the cruelty and the frequency of violent crime there. So no, it's a statistic I certainly don't have. I'm sure if you really dig deep inside the South African Police Service, you'd be able to find something. But to me personally, it's irrelevant. I really don't take it seriously. I think there's also a bit of a political, and I'm not referring to the question directly, but I think there are people that have made race kind of an excuse for violent crime in South Africa, or they want it to be that way. So they share this idea that white people are unfairly killed and murdered all over South Africa, and it's certainly, in general, it's certainly not the case. I'm sure, I've personally worked with farm attacks for very, very long, and I know for a fact there have been instances where it was more of a politically motivated thing, or racial slurs were... Looks like we're losing Ian's connection there.
Said during the attack, realizing and saying that the wouldn't be an accurate thing at all.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. You broke up a little bit there, but I think we got the gist of it. No, the bottom line here is crime affects everyone across the board, and in sheer numbers, it affects black South Africans disproportionately higher, but then they are disproportionately high percentage of the population, so it stands to reason that's going to be the case. I think what's really frightening about this, Ian, is just the pure violent, horrific nature and the callous disregard for life. I mean, people just driving through the streets, shooting. You've got gangsters operating in places like Kaisele and Gugulethu, places like that in the Western Cape. It's really frightening how life has been devalued by segments of South African society.
Yeah, I think to add to that, people are exposed to severe violence at a very, very young age. So I think that obviously has a major impact. I spoke to someone earlier today saying that we've become very sick in South Africa, actually, because we've become so desensitized to extreme violence. And we are exposed to extreme violence at very young ages. And the poorer the community, the higher the chances that you are exposed to that violence. I mean, the example I use is about a month ago, I was on a murder scene where someone was shot 4 times in the head in Kailicha. And a few meters away, children were playing in the street. And, there's a body lying there with literally half a head. And the kids are running around playing, and it's completely normal to them. So the ills that it will create in future, I think we can't even comprehend the damage that we will see in the long term, and it's going to take very, very long to really change and influence the psychological well-being of people that are exposed to this.
Now, I lived in Liberia, where I rebuilt the armed force of Liberia, and unfortunately had the horrific experience of witnessing. There's nothing I could have intervened. There's nothing I could have done. I was too far away, or I would have been a victim too. But I saw 3 vigilante murders from my apartment in the time that I lived there. And this is something that's become the norm in parts of South Africa. It's quite frightening to see people take the law into their own hands. Recently, a ride-sharing guy was dropping off some guys, I guess, who are gangsters or thieves in the Cape Flats, and they didn't want to pay him, so they got out of the car, and there have been some kidnappings or reported kidnappings, and they said, hey, he kidnapped the girls, and the people came and drugged the guy out of the car, stoned him, lit him on fire, and beat him to death, and while those gangsters robbed his car. This is unbelievable. I saw a video over a year ago of 2 colored, probably 19, 20-year-old guys who were accused of molesting a child in the Cape Flats, and they were stoned to death, and people share that on social media. This desensitization and this vigilante justice, you don't know that those people had committed that crime, and if they had, there's a process for that. And look what happens. We have an innocent man who was working hard to make a living, and because people wanted to be criminals, they exposed him to a horrific and painful, terrible death, and the same kind of death that Amy Beale experienced, although they didn't burn her body. This lawlessness in South Africa is shocking. And look, I'm not just picking on South Africa. We've seen similar things here in America during our summer of love, as I sarcastically call the progressive looting and burning of our cities in 2020. Crowd dynamics, mob mentality is very dangerous. And in South Africa, it's a powder keg in some places.
Absolutely. So to give you an idea, areas like Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, almost 10 years ago, we had the Khayelitsha Commission report come out, and also from the police's side, there were interesting findings and statistics that came from there. And at that stage, I was told that probably around 1/3 of murders committed in those areas are because of vigilante justice. So that is very shocking, but there's a very simple reason for that, and it's because people have absolutely no trust in the criminal justice system. Nothing has changed, nothing has improved in terms of criminal justice. While someone like Bheki Cele was patrolling beaches during the lockdown, the COVID lockdown, they literally reduced police capacity in some of those areas, and that made it incredibly difficult.
Oh, your mic's off. Oops. Ian's camera's off and his mic is off. I think he was interrupted by a youngster there, it sounded like. Hopefully he'll be back with us in a second there. So, yeah, I think he's coming back.
There we go. I'm here. Yeah, my daughter just came and joined me. Yeah.
I think I heard some mini me in the background there. I see some golden flax-colored hair there.
That's her. So give me just a sec, Chris. I'm just going to put her back in her room. I'll be back.
That's fine. I'll keep the audience entertained while you're gone. Folks, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Reports here on the Indaba Africa channel. It's Saturday, the 9th of July. It's Test rugby season. And Ireland, for the first time ever, won in New Zealand a few hours ago, defeating the All Blacks at home. Something I predicted last week, they let me down. This week, I predicted the All Blacks to win, and they let me down again. So Ireland finally wins in New Zealand for the first time ever. Wales came within a whisper of winning in South Africa last week. South Africa plays Wales in a few hours at Toyota Stadium in Bloemfontein. I'll be covering that live on Rugby Ascendant for live play-by-play and color commentary of the South Africa-Wales test. You can catch it there on Rugby Ascendant, our sister channel. If one of the mods can put that link in, you're welcome to join me there for play-by-play and color commentary. You can't watch the game, but you can listen to me, watch me while you put on TV and follow the game there. Ian will be back with us in a second. He's just taking care of his daughter, who photobombed the stream there. She just popped in. But so Ian is with me here. Ian is from Action Society, a civic group in South Africa that's focused on public safety, among other things. One of the many non-government organizations focused on addressing the needs of South Africans that are neglected by the government. There's a host of these organizations out there that do different things in different roles. We've had people from Dear SA on here before, Dear South Africa, as well as other groups like AfriForum. We've yet to get Gift of the Givers on. I'm going to make a concerted effort to get them on the program. They do wonderful work around the world, but especially in South Africa, and their founder is from South Africa. So, Ian, I was just letting people know what program they're listening to and what's going on there. So let me come back to that case, and then a little bit later I want to get back to Action Society so people know a little bit more about it. If you don't know anything about Action Society, folks, there are links to Ian's Twitter below the description of this video, as well as a Facebook and Twitter link or not Facebook, a Facebook and a website link to Action Society. So Ian, it was confusing because someone forwarded me a message from Action Society and it said that you had filed a case, but I read the article, and when it was published, it didn't say you had, it said you intended. And then I later found an independent online story that said you had gone and filed a case. And then I saw a photograph. It looked like you at a police station signing a charge of criminal injuria against the police minister and the police. So what's the status of that? Have you, in fact, as a South African individual and or Action Society, filed a case against either the minister or the police, or both?
Yeah, so I did open 2 cases against the minister and those police members that removed me from the meeting. The 2 charges that I laid is one common assault, and the other one is criminal injuria. And I also laid a complaint with the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, and they have confirmed that they received the complaint and that it will be investigated. So we're waiting for feedback on that, and yeah, I think it's very important, not because of me and not because of Action Society, but because of a very dangerous precedent that is set if we allow politicians, and specifically certain political elite, rather, let me not generalize, specific political elite, to bully people and to abuse their power or authority to silence the truth. It's a very dangerous message that was sent on Tuesday by Minister Cele, that when you speak out, especially when it's the truth, then you can get arrested or forcefully removed from a discussion.
Well, Ian, as a consequence of all this brouhaha, I mean, not to downplay what's going on, but to call it brouhaha, because it's definitely a loud situation. A lot of people in South Africa knew who you were before this, but I think a lot more people are going to know who Ian Cameron is now. As you discussed with me, I got to let people know, when I reached out to you, because we have been in contact through LinkedIn previously, but LinkedIn has become a progressive site, and they sanctioned your account, as I recall.
They banned me.
Yeah, they banned you. So, but we had been connected there long before I knew who you were. We connected because of my security background and because of what you do. And that's how I reached out to you to get you as a guest last year. And then when I tried to reach you, his account's gone. I forgot about that. So I tried to find you, and I got you through a mutual contact. And you were prompt. You answered me right away, but you're like, everybody's calling me, and I'm like, that's what I figured, And so your days have been pretty full of WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, whatever it is you're using, probably text messages. You've appeared in multiple programs. Is your phone just blowing up 24 hours a day now?
Yeah, it's really overwhelming, Chris. Obviously, I'm grateful for all the support that I'm getting. People have contacted me from even all over the world, never mind South Africa. Also very senior political leaders from all over that have contacted me. So obviously, I'm very grateful for that. But yes, it's been an incredibly busy time. My phone hasn't stopped, ringing and getting notifications. It literally come to a point that when I go to sleep, I switch it off completely just for a bit of a breather. And but I think the dust will start settling probably from tomorrow. Today, still a lot of discussions and interviews until later tonight. And hopefully, I don't mean it in a bad way, but hopefully tomorrow will be a little quieter. But I also understand that it's crucial that we get the message out there, and I'm a firm believer that we must keep talking, and that we must keep on keeping on. We really need to keep pushing. Since Tuesday, Cele must fall and Cele must go has been trending on Twitter. And I think, or at least in South Africa, and I think it's crucial that we keep that going. We need to have him removed as the Minister of Police, and we need serious political change in South Africa.
Well, it'd be nice to actually have a law enforcement official as a minister of police, not simply some political hack, which is what we've seen. Of course, South Africa has a great tradition with the ANC, with the likes of Bheki Cele, and also former head of Interpol, who was a convicted felon and wound up in prison. That's how he ended his life. But Paulie says that you've gained 20,000 new Twitter subscribers. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. But as far as what you just said, yeah, it is important. And, YouTube also got me. They took my original channel down without legitimate basis. I didn't violate their rules. I just became a target because I was inconvenient. So I have to dance around a lot of subjects now, and before I can simply report on them. But anyway, on the old channel, that was back in the days when I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning reporting on Senegal on the 6th of October, when no media except ENCA, or was it, I think it was ENCA, was present at Senegal for the first hearing for the suspected murders, who turned out weren't the murders, of Brendan Horner. No one else covered it, but I felt it was important. The world needed to know about it. And then, of course, everyone showed up the next time on the 20th of October. When everybody was there for that, but I also did that. And then Brockenfell. I covered Brockenfell. I covered the Witkois Monument Ceremony of VR. All these events are important. So I agree with your sentiment that sometimes we have to bite the bullet and make sure the word gets out. And then, so we take it in the short term, but the message is more important, and people need to be aware of what's going on. So
absolutely.
I appreciate it, and we're grateful that you came on today and to spend this time with us, because it is important for people to understand what's going on here, because it's the arrogance, the callous disregard, it's our turn to eat mentality of the ruling party in South Africa is really distasteful. I can tell you that from afar. It's distasteful. And of the 450 or so times I've been to South Africa, it's never been as bad as it is now. It just seems to get progressively worse. By the way, I'll be in South Africa from the 17th of August until the 13th of September, and I'll be traveling throughout the country. So maybe we can link up while I'm there.
Please, yes, that would be wonderful. No, Chris, I agree with you completely, and I want to thank you as well for providing a platform where we can share these very important stories, and I think we need to keep on doing so. I know next week is absolutely packed. The amount of new initiatives that have been activated or launched because of what happened this week actually just blow my mind. So I'm very excited about that. And I look forward to seeing the momentum, that we will gain in this fight for justice in South Africa through what has occurred in this last week. And yes, again, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share a little bit of what the experience was this past week.
Well, before we let you go, a few more minutes here before we get to the top of the hour, but let me ask you this, because a lot of people now are interested, who is Ian Cameron? It's like, who is John Galt? If you know that reference from Ayn Rand. But who is Ian Cameron? So, Ian, how did you get involved in this? Was there something in your life, a bad thing happened that got you interested in community safety? Or was it just something you saw and you had empathy? Or did you study security? Did you serve in the forces? What got you into this, and how did you get to where you are now? If you don't mind sharing.
No, not at all. So a lot of my family were actually in the police years ago for quite a few generations. I think I would probably join the police had it not been in such bad shape. But nevertheless, I got involved in community safety structures just over a decade ago. I was still working for AfriForum then. And was involved and responsible for the development of an entire community safety plan, and the training and mobilization of just over 12,000 volunteers that were involved in these community policing structures. And obviously, when I started with that, it was just I loved it. Very much interested in it still today, obviously. And when I started with that, I really felt that I want to further my studies, etc. in it. And so I did that. I completed my degree in police science, which is quite unorthodox in South Africa if you're not in the South African Police Service. But I did that to theoretically better understand some parts of policing in South Africa. Obviously, you still gain a lot of experience on a practical level, but it was good to study that. and also incident command systems, actually based on the US model, that we did through the Northwest University here in conjunction with the New York Fire Department quite a few years ago, and so on. So yeah, it developed from there. And how did I end up with the gender-based violence stuff? I think actually from some of the farm attack cases that I worked on, it was very clear that there's a major moral fiber issue when it comes to cruelty towards women and children in South Africa. Obviously, men are victims very often, and horrible things happen. That's true, but the cruelty that you see towards women and children in South Africa really is astounding sometimes. And yeah, it was time for me to get more involved in that. So very excited about the future. The model that we've developed to oversee prosecution and assist with investigation seems to be working already. We've had quite a few successes, even arrests already, and it's developing well. So yes, really looking forward to the future.
Well, that's excellent. One of the viewers is asking a question that says that looks like on Twitter people are trying to discredit you. What's happening there? Well, before you answer that, I can tell people what happens on Twitter. Twitter is an evil space. Many of us have accounts there just out of necessity because breaking news comes out there. At least you become aware of something like the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. It was on Twitter the moment it happened because people were on the scene and posted immediately. So Twitter's useful for that. Some people use it for other reasons, but it is a vile cesspool, and that's why Elon Musk has canceled his deal to buy it. But I'm sure that you probably are coming near attack. It happened to me. It's comical. That's one of the reasons my original channel was affected. Is that the flying monkeys? And that's a reference to the Wizard of Oz with the Wicked Witch of the West. The flying monkeys that are her minions. But the flying monkeys crowd attacked me because they thought I was South African and I was a danger because of my cogent analysis and exposure. I wouldn't be surprised if you're coming to attack, not just in Twitter but other places. But I mean, that just comes with the turf, doesn't it, Ian?
Yeah, I'm not going to get upset about it. I've already received a few threats as well after Tuesday. I was expecting it. We can't expect to engage in these types of issues and fights if and not think that we would ever get some kind of backlash about it. But I think it's crucial that we stayed focused on the issue at hand, and that is, again, 67 people get murdered every day, and that's the fight we need to fight. You're 100% right on Twitter, but I must also say that 99% of the comments and things that are said about me are positive so far. Obviously, it's not nice to read bad things about yourself, especially when people really make horrible, misassumptions about one. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to bother much with that. I'm just going to keep on keeping on. We've got a very important job to do, and I don't think we should allow Twitter, and especially the Twitter bots, to slow us down.
Well, I want to shift in just a moment to talk specifically about Action Society, because I think a lot of people aren't familiar with it, and hopefully expose more people to it. But before I do, a question came up about my itinerary and my trip to South Africa. For security reasons, I won't be publicly releasing my itinerary. I will let out when I'm in certain areas, but generally speaking, I'll give you a general idea where I'll be, because I'm already a target for something, so I'm just trying to be smart about this. But I can confirm that the weekend of the 19th to 21st, I will be in Uppington in the Northern Cape. I'll be appearing on a radio program there with Viant du Toit and some others, and former South African Defence Force and South African National Defence Force members. So that's the 19th, 21st. I'll be up there. I'll be in Gauteng from the 21st of August until the 3rd of September. But when I say I'm in Gauteng, that includes likely Northwest and KZN as I travel around to Spienkop, Blood River, Isandlwana, Rorke's Drift, the Royal Natal National Park, Pietermaritzburg, the Wartburg, and Durban and such. So just that's a notification because I know a lot of people are in here that haven't been listening to my program recently. So I will be coming, and there will be announcements. I'll be doing meet and greets with audience viewers and those who are subscribers and members of the channel. I'll meet people. We'll go to Mug and Bean or a hotel lobby or a restaurant or something like that. And for those willing to go on camera, and if I can afford the data, we'll do some live streams and that sort of thing. It worked very very well when I went to the UK. We did several meet and greets with subscribers and members of the channel, plus my moderators. And then I'll also meet with former guests on my program, as many as possible. I've already confirmed I'll be meeting it with Steve Hofmeyer, among others, and hopefully that'll go very well. So politicians, musicians, artists, dairy farmers, whoever I've interviewed, they're welcome to meet with me. So I will be releasing that as it comes out. Now, let me shift gears real quick, Ian, because this is not about my itinerary, but about talking to you. So Action Society, I've put the links in there. How big is it? Is it nationwide, or is it concentrated in the Western Cape? Is there something people can do to become involved? Is there something they can do to support it? Let us know a little bit about Action Society.
Yeah, absolutely. So Action Society is a civil rights body, mainly focused on gender-based violence. We have campaigned quite a bit because of the DNA backlog. You said it earlier, over 300,000 cases a year ago. At the moment, it's around 56,000 cases. So it has been brought down, but the problem is it's a ring-fenced amount, so they didn't count the actual cases as the new ones came in. Nevertheless, something like the Convicted Offender Amendment Bill, where the Department of Justice and Correctional Services released just under 100,000 Schedule 8 offenders, so murderers and rapists, over the last 4 to 5 years without having taken DNA samples from them. So those are the types of engagements that we have and campaigns that we do nationally. In terms of the prosecution oversight model and the investigation model that we've developed, we've piloted it in the Western Cape. We're testing certain models and theories with that. We'll probably do so for about 1 year to 3 years, more or less. It depends how it goes before we take it out to other areas. But because of the major demand for assistance across the country, we've already taken on a few cases in Gauteng. So I assume it will probably spread faster than what we anticipated at the start. And Action Society is still quite a small organization. We've got about 3,000 members in South Africa. We are funded by them, and our investigation and prosecution model is funded by external businesses and trusts that support us to assist, to be a voice for the voiceless, and to have justice prevail.
Well, that's awesome. And I just saw here that Debbie Moray said that she saw the link to Action Society in the video, and she went and she said she subscribed. I'm not sure how you subscribe, and she's donated to you already. Well, that's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Pretty awesome. Werner Svart says, how does Ian get paid for services, and is Action AS get funded? I think he just answered the question. They're funded by members. I don't know. You don't have any like Scandinavian NGOs or governments that support you, something like that. A lot of groups have that.
No, we don't. We wouldn't mind, but no, not yet.
Okay. All right, good. What about help? I mean, can Action SA use more people who have legal experience or investigative experience as volunteers, or people to help out as consultants or something like that?
I think we'll get there. I think the one thing that we do need help sometimes is with counseling for victims. Very often we get asked for that. So that is something where people can certainly make contact with us. They can just go onto the website and get the contact details there. With the other things, if they really feel they can help with something, they're more than welcome to make contact. But for now, in terms of what we're busy with, we're really in a development phase with some of the work that we do, and even though it's going well, we need to still iron out some things to just confirm the way forward for the future. So yeah, for now we're pretty good, but I do encourage people to please make contact, even if it's just for an online cup of coffee. It's always good to have that contact and to see if there's a way that someone is able to get involved and make a positive impact.
Now, you talk about something that I think a lot of people don't realize. People can report a crime, and if it maybe get investigated, maybe get prosecuted, but that's not where it ends. There's trauma, there's post-traumatic stress disorder, there are physical and mental challenges associated with sexual violence, gender-based violence on both genders. Yeah, okay, I'm saying there's two genders. So I put that on the table. But there's a lot to this, and you mentioned counseling for people. That's got to be a very difficult part of what your organization does. I've dealt with a few and had dealt with a few different organizations in South Africa who are in that space, trying to help people deal with the trauma and overcome it. But this, for many people, well, for most people that suffer from it, it's going to be something that's with them for their entire lives. They have to learn how to deal with it, and counseling is critically important. Is that perhaps the biggest challenge that you guys face, is trying to help with services like that?
For now, yes. So it's not something that we are actually predominantly focused on, but because of the severity of some of the cases that we get, there's obviously quite a high demand for help in terms of counseling and psychological support for people. So it is something that we will be developing in the future. We have started parts of it already, but unfortunately the amount of cases that there are makes it difficult to get to everyone in time. So that is something that we will need to focus on in future, to try and see how we can make sure people get the necessary psychological or well-being support that they need as soon as they possibly can.
Excellent. And Moonchild said that saw the site yesterday and subscribed and became a donor. So well, that's pretty good. It's growing. But I don't know if we got to the answer. And I think maybe it answers itself. Do you provide this sort of assistance nationwide, or are you focused in one area? Because I know you're in the Western Cape with limited resources. Do you concentrate in one place, or you try to provide this across the country?
So for now, it's mainly in the Western Cape, but it's just because we've piloted it here and we're testing certain things here. So we are definitely going to develop it or run it in the rest of the country. Obviously, Gauteng would probably be the next place where we build it out. But for now, still the Western Cape is our testing ground. Everything seems to be working fine, but we still need to just gain a bit more experience before we try and grow too big too fast.
Now, aside from your relationship with your good friend and buddy, your drinking buddy there, Bheki Cele, your relations with law enforcement, I imagine they must be productive and helpful. It sounds like you're helping resolve a number of cases.
Yeah, I must say the relationship on ground level is fantastic. I had such a laugh, since Tuesday happened. The amount of police members that have called and sent messages of support and even wanted to take photos when they bump into you on the street was quite surprising and overwhelming. There are still thousands of incredible people in the South African Police Service that work under immense stress in really bad conditions, and I think it's such a privilege for us to be able to help them and support them while they really try and keep a very broken ship afloat. So yeah, we will continue with that. Again, the relationship on ground level extremely positive, and the detectives and other police members that we work with really do appreciate the help. In fact, they contact us for help, and they continue to really work with us productively.
Well, Ian, we'll wrap up here in just a second. You've been very generous with your time, with thousands of people trying to contact you, and I'm grateful. I'm glad that we made contact previously, it was through LinkedIn, and then you came on the program, so I wasn't just some guy out of the blue trying to bug you to get you to come on. But before we wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that today marks a tragic and sad anniversary in the history of modern South Africa. It was on July 9th last year when Jacob Zuma, after failing to turn himself in by the 4th of July, been so directed by the Constitutional Court for his conviction for contempt of court, failing to do so, and then police minister and the police commissioner failed to have him arrested between the 4th and the 8th. When he finally left Nkandla after about 23:23 at night, I covered that live, and he drove out like a conquering king to the Escort Correctional Facility, arriving there in the early hours of the 9th of July. And that same night, when people started attacking trucks on the motorway headed up to the heart of Africa from Durban, and then we saw in the Drakensberg area, and then we saw just total chaos. The 9th of July is when the internal insurrection of the ANC began last year. Last night I had a panel conversation with Rob Hutchinson, Mark Oppenheimer, Karo Charo, and a number of other folks to talk about this, to mark this occasion. It seems that South Africans have forgotten this already, and I want to mention it for two reasons. Number one, I think we should mention it and maybe get some thoughts on you before you go about that. And the second thing is that in that event, those who lived in KwaZulu-Natal in particular felt that they were failed by law enforcement. And I would not disagree, but what I would say is that you were failed by the leadership of SAPS. You were failed by the leadership of crime intelligence. You were failed by the leadership of national intelligence. You were failed by the political leadership of the ANC in eThekwini, Durban, in Pietermaritzburg, throughout KZN, at the provincial, the local, and the national level. That's who failed you. That's who failed to protect you. That's who failed to prevent this insurrection from taking place. Don't necessarily be angry with police officers. Yes, there were corrupt ones. There were looters who were police officers, and they were caught by private citizens. But in the aggregate, as Ian has mentioned, there are a lot of hardworking, dedicated, patriotic law enforcement officers who are doing the best they can. It's not their fault if they're in a local police station in Pietermaritzburg and no one gave them any information or additional bullets or gave them an opportunity or resources to train and coordinate operations with other communities to respond to these crises. So I think that's important. Ian, any thoughts about the anniversary? That's not the best word, but the date to note that today's the 9th of July, 1 year on from the insurrection in KZN in Gauteng. Any thoughts on that before we wrap up?
Yeah, first of all, I think it will most likely happen again in future. I don't think it's the last time we've seen something like that. How exactly it will happen, I'm not 100% sure. I don't agree with people that, everyone will just be attacked in their houses and so on and so forth. And the reason I say that is just because I think South Africa has shown many a time that we've got a very strong civil society, even though not always seemingly or openly well organized. Society in South Africa openly fights back very often, especially when it comes to violence. And we saw that last year with the so-called insurrection. So I obviously think that political leadership should have been held the most accountable of the whole thing, because it's because of political leadership that the law enforcement bodies didn't function properly, that SAPS was completely numbed by cadre deployment, that the president was absolutely useless. And up to today, we haven't seen any real prosecution taking place. No political leaders have been brought to book. The Minister of Police is still the Minister of Police, as we all know. And so the list continues. So yes, it was an unfortunate date. I think too many people have moved on with the idea that it was a once-off, but I honestly think it will happen again, and the frequency of these types of events will surely increase in future.
Well, Ian, whether it was a once-off or not, this is a point I made last night, particularly with Mark Oppenheimer on our program. Of course, he's a constitutional attorney. And my issue with this whole thing, beyond the human loss, the 354 fatalities, the hundreds of billions of rand lost, and the horror that people lived with, fearful that they were going to be targeted, or their neighborhoods, their homes, their businesses, the jobs they lost, all that things. Beyond that, I am interested in accountability. I want someone brought to book for the failures here, and I want that at the political level, because that's who's responsible. A dearth of leadership, either intentional or just idiotic, whichever the case is. We need accountability. By the way, a lot of great comments in the chat. I don't know if you can see them there, Ian. People are applauding you, thanking you for the job you're doing. People are saying you're a local celebrity now. I don't know if that's true, but certainly getting a lot of attention, which is probably good for Action Society to bring attention so people know what they do and help out. Erica says she thanks you for what you've done with farm attacks. She was a victim of farm attack. They assaulted her former partner and her sons on their dairy farm in KZN and attempted to murder them. She survived, and it was a horrific situation just a few years ago. And she also does counseling in KZN. But thanks to everybody in the chat. Ian, look, it's Saturday. It's the weekend. You're very generous. I know you've been incredibly busy. Thanks a lot. It's great to connect with you again. And, after things calm down a little bit, maybe we'll get you back on the program and talk specifically about the sort of stuff you're doing in the townships there in Cape Town. Because, look, for those who are objective and honest, we know that the epicenter of crime is in the Western Cape, is in those townships for a number of reasons. And you probably have some insights that would be very helpful for people to understand things better. And I'd like to get you back on. Yeah. So Ian, thank you so much. I'll give you a chance. Any final words to share with people, either about your incident with your new best friend there, Bheki Cele, or with law enforcement, or gender-based violence, or just maybe, I don't know, maybe a message of hope, whatever. Anything you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I honestly just want to say thank you very much for the immense support. Again, it's overwhelming in a positive sense. And I'm very, very grateful for everyone that's standing behind me with this big challenge at hand, especially when it comes to the the little argument with the Minister of Police, and I really am grateful for everyone's support. And Chris, when you are in South Africa, please let me know. I'd gladly even go and show you around. I'll take you to some of the areas where we work, and you can maybe share some of the things that we see there. We can also go and look into some of the gang violence areas and show you a little bit of that. So thank you again, and I really appreciate the discussion.
Well, Ian, that's brilliant. In fact, the Pet Zoo film crew, a YouTuber, he's a film producer. He and I are going to be working on a documentary when I'm in Cape Town. Cape Town is my destination. Just so you know, I'm flying to Cape Town. It's going to take me 36 hours with long layovers in Frankfurt. It's a nightmare. But I had to take a flight that it has little chance of being canceled because all the other ones have been canceled. So I'll be flying into Cape Town from Frankfurt, and that's my base operations. I'll be there initially, but then flying up to Gauteng and to the Northern Cape, and then traveling around, coming back to Cape Town because I'm there for the World Cup, the Sevens World Cup, the 9th to 11th September. So I'll be there in early September up to the 13th in the Cape Town area. So we'll link up, and then maybe we can do some filming and put some stuff down for the record so that people become more aware of what the situation there. Ian, Cameron, it's a pleasure once again. Thank you so much for generosity of your time. Let me let you get back to your daughter and whatever she's up to. Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend. And by the way, are you a rugby fan? I don't think I ever asked you that.
Yes, I am actually.
All right, well, I got to check with an English surname like Cameron. You got to ask,
No, I am. I'm actually, in about 2 hours' time, I'll be watching the Springboks take on Wales again with a few friends.
Yeah, well, I'll be watching it too here in the States and doing live color commentary and play-by-play on Rugby Ascendant. Anybody wants to go watch it on there, you can put Super Sport on mute and listen to my enthusiasm call while you watch it. Anyway, Ian, so Springboks by 15 is my prediction. I'm sticking to it, and we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Have a wonderful day.
All right, Ian Cameron, I'll let you drop off there. Thank you very much. Go take care of your family. All right, folks, that was Ian Cameron from Action Society. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you being with us this weekend at a special time with a special guest on a very important topic. The Cat in the Hat, South Africa's top gangster-in-chief, Bheki Cele, has, in fact, we've confirmed, had criminal injuria and assault charges filed against him, laid against him by Action Society and by Ian Cameron. And bravo to them. Not that anything will ever come of it, but at least it's on the record. Thanks a lot. If you're not a subscriber to this program and you popped in, I saw some new names there, please become a subscriber. It's easy. All you have to do is...
That was easy.
Push that button right down there and you become a subscriber. It costs you nothing. Subscription is absolutely free. You get world-class, dare I say, modestly, world-class news reporting and analysis of events from Southern Africa, South Africa in particular, around the continent of Africa and around the world, from a former intelligence officer and analyst of over 3 decades, a veteran of 36 years who served in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Nigeria, Mauritania, Uganda, and Ethiopia in Africa, and 3 tours in Germany, a tour in Italy, plus combat in the Middle East a couple of times, in Africa, and also in the Balkans. And there you have it, folks. And that's just scratching the surface of the things that I've done and I've been involved in. Not boasting, just sharing. So you can take it for what it's worth, but you'll get honest reporting here. I didn't say unbiased. I never said unbiased. I do have a bias, but I'm honest about my bias. So there you go. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll be live on Rugby Ascendant here in just under 2 hours if you want to go listen to me on there. Now, you won't see the game because it'll be a copyright strike. YouTube will spank me for broadcasting the game, and rightly so. It's not my content, but you will hear me and talking about the game and covering it. So thanks a lot, folks. Appreciate it. My thanks once again to Ian Cameron. It was a real pleasure to have him back on once again. And I hope that Action Society has great success in its efforts to help those who are suffering from horrific abuse and other situations. Be sure to hit the like button, folks. Cost you nothing. It's absolutely free. And become a subscriber if you're not one already. Thank you very much. God bless and have a lovely weekend. And don't forget, not just will I have the Springboks game, but later today, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's USA Eagles vying for the Rugby World Cup qualification, playing the Condors of Chile. In Santiago, Chile, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, midnight South Africa. I'll also be doing play-by-play and color commentary for that. It's the first of 2 game series in which the winner on aggregate points advances to the Americas 2 for the Rugby World Cup. The United States vying for that slot. Chile has never been. U.S. has been repeatedly. We'll see who does it. This week in Santiago, next weekend on the 16th in Glendale, Colorado. Cheers, everybody. Take care of yourself, and thank you so much for tuning in to this program.